Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. He bought a quiet house on the edge of town to escape rules, neighbors, and noise. But when a rogue HOA declares war on his freedom, he finds himself fighting surveillance, lies, and armed enforcers on his own lawn. What starts as a property dispute turns into a full-blown battle for liberty. I've never been the kind of guy to rattle easily. I like peace, order, and, above all, keeping to myself. That's why I bought this house in the first place, on the far western edge of Bay Hill Shores, just outside the limits of their HOA. The listing made it real clear, not part of the association. That was the selling point. Freedom. No nosy neighbors measuring my grass or fining me for leaving a wrench on the porch. Just me, my dog Bear, and a half-acre of Florida real estate that belonged to me and no one else. The place needed some love when I bought it, but I put in the sweat. Painted the exterior deep navy blue. Looked damn good against the white shutters. Mounted a flagpole right on the front lawn, flew the stars and stripes and the navy jack underneath. Didn't think much of it until I saw the looks from across the street. I figured maybe they were just surprised to see someone not obsessively color matching their mulch to their mailbox. But then the first letter came. It looked official, I'll give them that. Thick envelope, faux gold HOA seal on the corner. I opened it standing barefoot in the kitchen with a cup of coffee and a bowl of dog food in my hand. Inside was a typed notice with all the charm of a parking ticket. Notice of violation. Your property is not in compliance with HOA standards due to unauthorized exterior paint color, visible storage of non-operational vehicles, improper flag display. You are hereby given 10 days to rectify the above or face escalating fines. I laughed out loud. Bear tilted his head like, "What's funny?" I double-checked the address. They had it right. But what they didn't have was the fact that my property isn't in the damn HOA. Not now, not ever. I threw the letter in the drawer, not even the trash. Figured I'd save it as a curiosity. Thought it was a simple mistake. Probably some overzealous administrator lumping me in with the rest of Bay Hill. I'd seen enough bureaucracy to know how lazy paper trails get. 3 days later, the HOA president showed up in person. I was out front replacing a broken fence slat when I saw her. Early 50s, rigid posture, beige pantsuit that matched her beige SUV. She walked like someone used to yelling at cashiers. Stopped at the edge of my driveway like she was entering enemy territory. "You must be Mr. McLean," she said, eyes scanning my lawn like it had insulted her mother. "I'm guessing you're Karen," I said, straightening up and wiping sweat off my brow. She didn't like that. "I'm the president of the Bay Hill Shores HOA," she corrected, as if I was supposed to salute. I dropped my hammer into the tool bucket. "Well, that's nice, but my property isn't part of Bay Hill Shores, so—" "Actually," she interrupted, "we believe that due to a zoning reclassification in 2016, your lot may fall within our jurisdiction. You should have received the notice." I blinked. "You mean the one that threatened me over paint and a parked truck?" She pressed her lips into a thin, sanctimonious line. "It's not a threat, Mr. McLean. It's an opportunity for alignment. You're disrupting the visual harmony of the community." I stared at her. "It's a house, not a chorus line." She huffed, turned on her heel, and left with a final remark. "You'll be hearing from us again." And I did. Over the next 2 weeks, I received 4 more notices. New ones. Noise complaints, which were probably just the sound of me using a power drill at 2 in the afternoon. Unauthorized signage, referring to the private property. No trespassing plaque I'd mounted next to my gate. Non-permitted solar modifications. Yes, apparently my rooftop panels were too industrial-looking for their taste. Each time I drafted a response with scanned copies of my deed, the original zoning certificate, and a notarized affidavit from the realtor. Each time I emailed it to their board, and each time I received nothing but silence. Until the inspection. It was a Saturday morning. I just poured myself a cup of black coffee and stepped out onto the porch when I saw them. 2 men in black tactical polos with community security patches on the sleeve. No names, no badges. One held a DSLR camera and the other carried a clipboard. They didn't knock. They walked up to the edge of my yard, took photos of my truck, my flagpole, and my freaking dog. I called out, "Can I help you, gentlemen?" The one with the clipboard didn't look up. "Routine visual assessment, HOA compliance." "Not part of your HOA," I said, stepping onto the grass. "According to our map, you are," said camera guy. "Well, according to my county deed, I'm not. So unless you're with the county or the sheriff's department, you're trespassing." Clipboard guy raised an eyebrow like he was deciding whether I was bluffing. But eventually they turned and walked away without another word. I called the sheriff's office that afternoon just to cover my ass. The deputy confirmed what I already knew. The HOA had zero jurisdiction over my property. "But unless they break in or threaten you directly," he said, "it's all civil. You'd need to take legal action if it continues." Bear growled that night at the window. I stepped outside and found a small, blinking red light tucked into the mailbox post. A cheap little wireless camera facing my house. Unmarked, I took it down, smashed it under my boot, and duct-taped a note to the post. "Private property. HOA not welcome. Try me again." The next day, my inbox pinged with an email titled Notice of Escalation. It was going to be one of those wars. They sent a second notice of escalation 3 days later, certified mail this time, as if the envelope weighed more by virtue of arrogance alone. Same crap as before. Violations, threats of fines, and now something new, a deadline. I had until 2 p.m. on Saturday to resolve the issues or further administrative actions would be taken. I stared at the paper and laughed out loud. Bear barked once like he agreed. Saturday was 2 days away, and I was curious what exactly they thought they'd do when I didn't budge. I wasn't about to repaint my house or tow my own truck just because some suburban tyrant with a superiority complex decided I was bad for their community image. Still, I wasn't stupid. I scanned the letter, saved a copy to a new folder I'd started, HOA Hell, and fired off an email to my lawyer friend in Tampa, the same one who helped me close on the property. I figured it'd be good to have a formal cease and desist ready just in case. And then I decided it was time for a little backup of my own. That night, I called Rico and Donovan, two of my oldest friends, my brothers from another era. We served together in Afghanistan almost 15 years ago. Rico was a former recon Marine with a jawline like it was cut from concrete. Donovan had been a corpsman, the kind who once stitched up his own forearm under fire because there wasn't time. They were both living in Jacksonville now, working private security gigs between deployments. "You serious?" Rico asked when I told him the story. "They're sending fake cops after you for a mailbox color?" Donovan added. "Pretty much," I said. "They're trying to bleed me into submission with bullshit and pretend laws." Rico snorted. "We'll be there Friday night. I'm bringing whiskey. Donovan's bringing the grill." I didn't argue. The next morning, I spotted something that made the hair on my neck rise. My mailbox had been tampered with. Not destroyed, just slightly pried open. The inside was coated in some kind of white powder. I didn't touch it. I photographed it, called the sheriff's office again, and bagged the contents in a Ziploc. The deputy came out, shrugged, said it looked like baking soda or flour. Probably a prank. Yeah, a prank. I installed 2 more security cameras that afternoon, one facing the driveway, one directly over the porch. The next evening, I noticed a gray sedan I didn't recognize idling across the street, lights off. I walked to the edge of the yard and stood there, arms crossed, just staring. After a minute, it pulled away, slow and deliberate. No plates on the front. By Friday evening, Rico and Donovan rolled up in a black Dodge Ram that looked like it had seen action in 3 wars and survived all of them. Rico stepped out first in boots and cargo pants like he was still on deployment. Donovan brought out a portable smoker, the kind you could use to feed a platoon. "Damn," Rico said, looking at the house. "This place looks like freedom." "Exactly," I nodded. Which is why they hate it. We spent the night out back on lawn chairs, whiskey in hand, Bear asleep at our feet, listening to classic rock and the Florida night. It felt good, like home was holding its ground. Saturday morning came hot and heavy. Sun blazing by 9. I made coffee, Rico started slow cooking ribs, and Donovan helped me wire up a fresh camera near the fence. Then, at 10:45 sharp, a white SUV pulled up. 2 men stepped out. One of them I recognized from before, clipboard guy. The other was new, taller, heavier, shaved head, tactical vest. I walked out to meet them at the gate. "You guys lost." "Inspection," clipboard guy said. "Final notice. We've received no indication of compliance." "Because there is no compliance," I said, smiling. "Because I'm not in your association." He ignored that. Shaved head took a step forward, scanned the property like he was planning a breach. I noticed his side holster, pepper spray. Not a cop. Not licensed security either, just HOA muscle and cargo pants. You are hereby informed, clipboard guy continued, that the HOA is considering administrative action. You may be subject to lien placement for continued non-compliance. You can't lien what you don't own, I said. Now get off my property. Rico appeared beside me like a ghost. Is there a problem here? Shaved head turned to him, instinctively bracing. Who are you? Donovan came out the side gate, holding a spatula like a weapon. Neighbors, barbecue guests, combat veterans. You got a preference? Clipboard guy took a visible step back. Shaved head held his ground but shifted uncomfortably. We're just doing our job. And I'm just protecting mine, I said. They left. No fight, no more words. But I knew what this was. This wasn't the end. It was the part in the movie where the camera lingers a second too long on the villain's face as they retreat. Clipboard guy didn't just walk away, he turned around slow, eyes locked on mine like he was taking notes. Later that afternoon, a drone buzzed over the yard. Donovan shot it down with a slingshot and a rock. Thing crashed into my bird bath and exploded like a toy helicopter from hell. We grilled ribs, drank whiskey, and stayed on the porch till long after midnight. At some point, I looked out over the lawn and felt it in my gut, the tension, the tightening coil of something big coming. And I wasn't wrong. I woke up that morning already on edge, not because of some sixth sense or prophetic dream. I just learned not to trust a Saturday that started out quiet. The Florida sun was already mean, burning through the window like it had something to prove. I brewed coffee, gave Bear his kibble, and stood at the porch rail, scanning the tree line like I was back on patrol. Rico and Donovan were still asleep in the guest room, though Donovan snored like a damn chainsaw. So, asleep was generous. By 7:02, the show started. A black SUV pulled up right past my gate. Unmarked, tinted windows, engine still running. 3 guys stepped out. Same uniforms as before, black polo shirts, Bay Hills Security Division stitched across the chest like it meant something. Clipboard guy wasn't with them this time. Instead, leading the pack was Shaved Head, now wearing aviators and what looked suspiciously like body armor under his shirt. With him were 2 others, one skinny with a nervous twitch, the other built like a failed MMA fighter with a bad attitude. No words, no knocking. They marched up the front path and stopped 5 feet from my door like they were waiting for a battering ram order. I opened the door a crack. Morning, fellas. Shaved Head stepped forward. We're here to serve enforcement under HOA authority. You've failed to comply. I'm not in your HOA, I said again. I've sent the paperwork multiple times. You're in our jurisdiction, whether you agree or not, he snapped. You are now under temporary neighborhood restriction pending review. We're authorized to detain you until HOA compliance assessment is complete. Authorized by who? I asked, narrowing my eyes. Karen the decorator. They didn't laugh. Instead, MMA guy moved first. He shoved the door open hard enough to smack into the wall. I stumbled back, instinctively raising my hands. The skinny one came around behind me like a goddamn snake and yanked my arms down. Plastic zip ties wrapped around my wrists before I could blink. Bear barked like mad from the backyard, throwing himself against the gate. What the hell do you think you're doing? I yelled, twisting in their grip. This is illegal. Non-compliant resident. Hostile. Proceeding with restraint, one of them muttered, like he was reading from a script. They forced me onto the porch floor, face against the wood, zip ties biting into my skin. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't being arrested. I was being abducted by mall cops with delusions of grandeur. And then I heard the door creak open behind me. Rico's voice came low and dangerously calm. Get your hands off him. Silence. The kind that hums in your chest. Donovan followed. You got 5 seconds. After that, I stop asking. MMA guy looked up, saw 2 6-foot-plus combat veterans in sleep shorts and steel in their eyes, and hesitated. Shaved Head made the mistake of reaching for his spray. That's when things went sideways. Rico launched off the porch steps like a missile, tackling MMA guy into the bushes with enough force to crack ribs. Donovan grabbed Twitchy from behind and used his own tie gun to bind him faster than I've ever seen anyone hogtied. Shaved Head swung, missed, and caught a knee to the stomach from Rico that folded him like a lawn chair. 30 seconds. That's all it took. By the time I rolled over wincing, all 3 officers were on the ground. MMA guy moaning, Twitchy crying, and Shaved Head trying to pretend he wasn't about to puke in the flower bed. Rico crouched down next to him, real close. Say jurisdiction again. I dare you. Donovan cut my ties loose with his pocket knife and helped me sit up. You good? Just pissed off, I said, flexing my wrists. I want names, badges, whatever fake-ass documentation they think gives them the right. Not a damn one of them has ID, Donovan said, checking pockets. No license numbers, no agency cards. Just a printed HOA mission statement in Comic Sans. I'm calling the sheriff, I said. Now. They tried to get up. Rico put a boot on Shaved Head's chest. I'd stay down if I were you. 10 minutes later, 2 sheriff's cruisers rolled in. The same deputy as before, this time with a partner. They looked around at the scene. 3 subdued private enforcers zip-tied with their own gear, bruised but breathing. Morning, Mike, I said, holding up my scratched wrists. We got a situation. You don't say, he replied, already pulling out his notepad. We gave them everything. Video from Donovan's GoPro, my paperwork folder, even the GoPro footage of the initial assault. The deputies took statements, asked careful questions, but in the end, they didn't make arrests. This is ugly, one said, but it's a civil matter unless you want to press charges for assault. I nodded slowly. Oh, I will. Believe me. But first, I want to know who sent them. HOA president, Twitchy blurted. She said we could go hands-on if he resisted. Donovan raised an eyebrow. Oh? That sounds like a confession. The deputy jotted it down. We'll file a report and forward it to the DA, but you're going to want to talk to an attorney. They're already on speed dial, I said. The officers loaded the bruised trio into the back seats and drove off one by one. Rico stood by the smoker, arms crossed. Think they'll be back? He asked. I stared at the porch, the broken tie cuffs, the scuff marks on my door. Oh yeah, I said. But next time, we won't need to tie 'em up. The law's coming with us. I thought getting jumped on my own damn porch by HOA goons would be the peak of insanity. I was wrong. That was just the warm-up act. They came back the next day, but this time in uniform, not the goons, the cops. 2 cruisers, same deputies. Only now they brought a third guy with a notepad and a badge from the county legal department. Turned out the HOA had filed a complaint within 24 hours of getting their goon squad handed back to them in zip ties. Claimed I had initiated a physical altercation, that I had willfully obstructed community enforcement officers, and was a threat to local order. I didn't know whether to laugh or go find a bottle of bourbon. But the deputy, Mike, who had already seen the footage, was professional enough to make it clear that he wasn't buying the story. Still, they had to take a supplemental report, because now the HOA's president, Karen, was alleging that I had kidnapped her private contractors. They broke into my house, I said, holding up my scratched wrists again. You saw the footage. Mike nodded. I did. And the DA probably won't touch this. But Karen's pressing every button she can find. That much became clear when, about an hour after the deputies left, a woman in a navy blue pantsuit showed up holding a clipboard like it was a sword. Mr. McLean? She asked, approaching my porch. Depends, I said. Are you here to threaten me or fine me? She didn't laugh. I'm with the HOA's External Affairs Committee. We're escalating this matter internally. You should be aware that continued non-compliance may result in formal civil litigation. Great, I said, sipping my coffee. Tell Karen to bring it. My lawyer loves a good scrap. And I meant it. Because by that point, Cynthia Marquez, my attorney out of Tampa, was already deep in the weeds. The minute I sent her the footage and photos from the assault, she was like a dog with a bone. She drafted a cease and desist, followed by a notice of intent to sue for illegal detainment, trespass, emotional distress, and attempted coercion. We filed the letters electronically to the HOA board with a nice, tidy delivery receipt and timestamp. Karen didn't respond directly. Instead, that night, I found flyers taped to every mailbox on my street. Bright red letters across the top screamed, "Community at Risk." There was a photo of me, taken from God knows where, standing in my front yard, arms crossed, next to Bear. The caption read, "Resident refuses to comply with HOA safety standards. Subjects neighborhood to chaos. History of aggression. Known firearms on premises." They made it sound like I was a militia leader holed up in a bunker, not a guy who grilled ribs with his veteran friends and fixed his own fence. Rico tore one of the flyers in half and said, "We should sue just for the font." Donovan didn't laugh. "This isn't about code violations anymore. This is character assassination." They were right. Karen had gone full warpath. And she had one thing I didn't, a network. She was feeding lies through the HOA newsletter, the neighborhood Facebook group, even some sketchy-looking Bay Hill Community Watch Twitter account that cropped up overnight. My inbox started blowing up with spam complaints from concerned residents. I got voicemails accusing me of threatening children, scaring joggers, and harboring anti-American views. One woman even said she saw me urinating on a lawn flamingo, which, for the record, I would never do to a plastic bird. We pushed back. Cynthia filed a formal libel notice and drafted a complaint for defamation. Then Donovan posted the GoPro video, the full footage of me being tackled, zip-tied, and dragged by HOA muscle on TikTok. Within 48 hours, it had over 1 million views. Comments were brutal and gloriously in my favor. This man is a national treasure. Free him. HOA is about to catch a federal lawsuit, and I am here for it. Veteran gets tackled by fake cops and his buddies handle it like pros. Somebody get this man a beer and a tank. The tide turned. A local ABC affiliate reached out for an interview, then 2 more news stations. Rico gave a 2-minute speech on property rights and the spirit of America while wearing an apron that said, "We don't dial 911," and flipping burgers. Karen tried to fight it. She issued a public statement through the HOA. Mr. McLean has misrepresented the facts. His aggressive behavior, documented complaints, and refusal to follow community standards have left us no choice but to act decisively. But nobody bought it anymore. A day later, the American Civil Liberties Union, the actual ACLU, sent us an email. They'd seen the footage, and apparently my little HOA conflict wasn't so little. They had been tracking similar cases across the country, and this one, with physical detainment, misinformation, and neighborhood intimidation, was exactly the kind of overreach they wanted to challenge in court. By Thursday, I had a formal letter from their litigation division asking if I'd be willing to be part of a federal action against unlawful HOA enforcement practices. I was stunned. I called Cynthia. She laughed. "I told you this wasn't just about your fence." Bear barked once like he agreed. By now, I knew what they were capable of. Karen and her hand-picked henchmen weren't just petty tyrants in pastel polos. They were willing to lie, trespass, and even attack a man on his own porch. And now, with the ACLU involved and the story spreading like wildfire, they were cornered. Problem is, cornered animals don't back down. They lash out. That became obvious the night my power mysteriously cut out. It was just after 11. I'd been reviewing emails from the ACLU, going over affidavits, and preparing for our first Zoom briefing with their legal team. Lights flickered once, then died completely. Silence swallowed the house. Bear growled from the doorway. I checked the breaker. Nothing tripped. My neighbors across the street still had lights. I went outside with a flashlight and found the utility box near the side gate wide open, wires clipped. They were trying to scare me, or provoke me. Maybe both. I called the county utilities department and they sent someone out in the morning. The tech looked at the damage and whistled. Somebody knew what they were doing. This wasn't random. I filed a police report. Again. Cynthia was furious. They're escalating because they know they're losing, and that makes them desperate. We moved forward as planned. Forward meant filing the official suit. My personal case against the HOA and Karen for assault, defamation, trespassing, and harassment. And in parallel, joining the federal class action the ACLU had just greenlit. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. They had 7 other cases already lined up from across the country. People railroaded by HOA boards that thought they were sovereign governments. The news picked it up again. My inbox exploded. One guy in Nevada offered to fly out and build me a 6-foot steel fence, just to piss him off. Another lady in Idaho sent Bear a care package with gourmet dog treats and a card that said, "For standing strong against domestic tyranny." But all the attention came with a price. That's when things got darker. Not legal, not public, personal. I noticed a black truck tailing me for 3 days. Not every second, but often enough for the pattern to stick. It was the same one that had driven by, slow, the morning after the first attack. No plates on the front, light bar on the roof. Tinted windows, way too dark for Florida standards. Rico started clocking the passes. Same angle, same time. He's watching you. Donovan wasn't subtle. He stood on the porch holding a shotgun one morning when the truck rolled by. The guy didn't even flinch, just kept cruising like he had all the time in the world. Then the threat started. Handwritten notes left under my doormat. One said, "Enjoy your attention. Won't last." Another, "You're not safe when the lights go out." The handwriting was stiff, forced, like someone trying to disguise it. No fingerprints, no return address, just silence and menace. Cynthia suggested hiring private security, at least temporarily. I didn't want to. Felt like giving in. Rico and Donovan disagreed. "You've got a target on your back now," Rico said, checking the motion detectors. "Not from the HOA. Those bastards are busy lawyering up. This is something else. Someone who's not ready to let this go." Donovan nodded. "You remember the guy with the shaved head? The one that zip-tied you?" "Yeah. Brian or Byron something." "Brian Coulter," Donovan said, holding up a printed report. "I looked him up. Dishonorably discharged, barred from owning firearms, mental health red flags. Karen hired him straight off a private security Facebook group." I exhaled. "He's the one watching me." "We think so," Rico said. "And if he's off leash now, that's a problem." That night, I didn't sleep much. I installed extra lights, changed passwords, added motion alerts on every window. Still, around 2 in the morning, Bear started barking like the devil was in the bushes. I ran outside in boxers with a flashlight and .45 caliber, heart pounding. No one there, but one of the side cameras caught it. A silhouette, just outside the fence line, watching the house, standing still for 4 minutes, then gone. We handed the footage to the police. They said they couldn't ID the figure. No visible face, no license plate. "Could be nothing," the officer said, "but we'll log it." "Could be nothing" was starting to sound like a catchphrase around here. So, we went on the offensive. Donovan, bless him, spent 6 hours digging into HOA financial records. What was public, what was buried in PDFs online. He found 2 payments made from the HOA's discretionary fund to a private contractor named B. Coulter listed under external perimeter assessment, so now we had a direct link. Karen had paid him. Cynthia nearly clapped when we told her. "This means we don't just have assault and defamation," she said. "We have willful negligence and reckless endangerment." It was enough to add new charges. She filed an amended complaint. And the moment it hit the court's public docket, the HOA board exploded. Emails leaked. One board member resigned. Another sent a mass email calling for Karen's immediate removal. Bay Hill Shores was fracturing. Residents were whispering. Some outright demanded answers. Others just stopped making eye contact when I walked bare. Karen, of course, doubled down. She held a last-minute emergency meeting, closed to non-members, but the audio leaked anyway. In it, she says, "If we don't crush him now, we lose everything. The cameras, the patrols, the authority. We have to be willing to go all the way. All the way." Rico played the clip back twice, eyes narrowed. "She's losing control." "No," Donovan said quietly. "She's already lost it." It started like any other Tuesday. Coffee, toast, Bear, chewing on a squeaky toy shaped like the Constitution. I almost laughed at the irony. But there was something in the air that day. One of those silent weights pressing down on your spine, warning you something's about to give. And something did. By noon, Donovan was out back checking the solar panel mounts when his phone buzzed. He froze. I was inside reviewing deposition notes when he called out, "I think we got him." I stepped out. "Who?" "Coulter," he said, holding up the feed from the motion alert system we'd synced to his phone. Security cam by the east trailhead. "He's back, this time with gear." I looked. The grainy black and white footage showed a figure in tactical pants and gloves. Coulter, no question, moving along the back of the tree line, crouched low. He had something strapped to his back and something in his hand that looked a lot like a fuel canister. I didn't wait. I called the sheriff's department. Then I called Cynthia. "This is it," she said. "They catch him now. It's over." And they did. 2 patrol cars and 1 unmarked cruiser rolled up in less than 8 minutes. Rico and Donovan intercepted Coulter before he reached the side gate, but this time they didn't go hands-on. They just stalled him calmly until the sheriff pulled up. Coulter didn't run. He didn't shout. He just stood there, breathing heavy, eyes twitching, muttering something under his breath that sounded like numbers or coordinates. They patted him down and found a folding knife, duct tape, gloves, a Zippo, and a printed map of my property with red X's marked around the porch, the shed, and the bedroom windows. In his car, parked 2 blocks down, they found a 5-gallon gas can, a spool of paracord, and, get this, a fake private enforcement badge clipped to the visor. The guy was gearing up like he was about to go full Waco. He was arrested on the spot. possession of tools with intent to commit arson, trespassing with malicious intent, violation of a protective order. Yeah, Cynthia had filed that the week prior, and conspiracy to commit assault. They also found a burner phone in his glove compartment with texts from a number traced back to Karen. Don't tell me what you're doing, just get it done. Do not use your name or involve the board. Keep it quiet, he cannot win. Yeah, Karen was done playing queen. Now she was playing mob boss. We handed everything to the ACLU. Cynthia filed an emergency injunction against Karen personally, naming her as co-conspirator in a planned attack on a civilian. Rico sent the footage to our favorite local news anchor, and within hours, the story hit the evening news under the headline, HOA president linked to attempted arson plot against homeowner in viral rights case. By midnight, the HOA board was in a free fall. 3 members resigned. One went on record saying, "I never agreed to this. I just wanted people to stop painting their mailboxes purple." Residents started knocking on my door, not with threats this time, but apologies. One guy brought me a casserole. A couple I'd never met offered to testify in court. Said Karen had been running the HOA like a soft dictatorship for years, using vague bylaw threats and manipulating the elderly into voting her way. Karen? She tried to disappear. Didn't work. The sheriff's department executed a search warrant on her home 2 days later, found boxes of HOA documents in her garage, including records showing she used HOA funds to pay Coulter off book. The receipts were buried under landscaping consultation. Cynthia nearly cried from joy. We've got her. Wire fraud, criminal conspiracy, abuse of authority. The DA opened a criminal investigation. Karen was officially charged within the week. That was the turning point. The HOA was disbanded by emergency vote. The county intervened, dissolving the Bay Hill Shores Association due to egregious and unlawful misuse of authority and funds. A temporary administrator was appointed to restructure the community until a new voluntary residence council could be established. Me. I was called in to testify at a preliminary hearing for the federal case. I walked into that courtroom in jeans and a denim shirt, with Rico and Donovan flanking me like damn sentinels. The judge looked over the stack of filings, the exhibits, the photos of my wrists and the porch damage, the police reports and social media posts and text transcripts, and said, "How is this real life?" Because that's what everyone was asking now. How did it get this far? The thing is, this wasn't just a local mess. The federal case was building into something bigger. What started as my story was becoming a precedent, a blueprint for what happens when unchecked power, bad law, and ego combine under a homeowners association logo. We weren't just fighting for one house anymore. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Not the room, just the atmosphere. It wasn't fear exactly. It was gravity. That silent, slow-moving weight of knowing that every word you say in a room like this could ripple outward and change the damn system. I was no stranger to pressure. I'd had bullets whip past my head and IEDs explode under my boots. But this was something else. This was fighting a war with paperwork and principles, and I wasn't doing it alone anymore. The federal case was underway. ACLU attorneys were spearheading the charge. I'd become their key plaintiff, the face of the lawsuit. Not because I asked for it, but because Karen and her fake cops made me into it. The courtroom was full. Journalists, ACLU staff, lawyers from other states, even a few members of Congress observing from the back. Yeah, Congress. That's how far this had gone. The issue had caught the attention of a House subcommittee on civil liberties. When I took the stand, I spoke plainly about my house, my life, the absurd notices, the ambush, the zip ties, the threats, the drone, the sabotage. The man who stood outside my property line with a gas can and a map of my bedroom window. I spoke not as a lawyer, not as an activist, just a guy who bought a house and wanted to be left alone. When I was done, they showed the video of the assault again, the GoPro footage. The courtroom went dead silent. Karen's lawyer objected, claimed it was prejudicial. The judge overruled him with a bored glance and said, "It's literally the incident in question, counselor. Sit down." The ACLU attorneys outlined everything: misuse of power, lack of legal boundaries for HOA enforcers, patterns of intimidation, financial abuse, and unlawful surveillance. They presented a dozen other homeowners' stories. Mine was just the loudest. Then came the smoking guns. The bank statements showing HOA discretionary funds funneled to Coulter. The leaked emails where Karen told board members to act decisively and neutralize the problem. The voicemails from HOA board meetings where people laughed about sending a message to non-compliant properties. Karen sat stiffly at the defense table, her signature beige blazer replaced with courtroom black. She didn't testify. Her lawyers did their best to paint me as a combative, non-conforming personality who escalated tensions and attracted unwanted attention. But they couldn't argue with the footage. They couldn't argue with police reports, with court-authorized search warrants, with Coulter's own confession made after realizing Karen threw him under the bus in every press interview. The judge listened, took it seriously, and then delivered what we were waiting for. This court finds that the actions of the Bay Hill Shores Homeowners Association, under the direction of President Karen Stanwyck, constitute an egregious violation of civil liberties, due process, and the legal boundaries afforded to non-governmental residential associations. He didn't stop there. Effective immediately, this case is referred to the United States District Court for review under constitutional civil protection standards. A motion is entered to place a moratorium on all enforcement activities by HOAs against non-member adjacent properties pending federal guidance. I don't remember breathing during that. The courtroom erupted, not with cheers, but with a kind of silent release. People shaking hands, Cynthia squeezing my shoulder, Rico smirking like he'd just watched a sniper shot hit dead center from a mile out. A week later, I was flown to D.C. to testify before the House subcommittee. It was surreal. I sat in front of a row of congresspeople while cameras rolled and a placard with my name sat in front of me like I was somebody important. They asked me what happened. I told them. One woman, a congresswoman from Oregon, wiped her eyes. The chairman leaned forward. Mr. McLean, in your opinion, should homeowners associations have enforcement power over individuals who are not dues-paying members? I answered, no, sir. I fought for this country, not so some suburban warlord in a name tag could tie me up on my porch. That part ended up on the news. A lot. Back home, Karen faced 3 felony charges. Her trial was set for the following quarter. Coulter cut a plea deal. The HOA was permanently dissolved by county vote. Bay Hill Shores was reorganized under a voluntary civic group, non-binding, no fines, no enforcement powers. Residents started stepping up, organizing actual neighborhood events, cleaning up public areas themselves. A local veteran group even built a new playground at the edge of the community, using leftover HOA budget funds that hadn't been spent. They asked if I wanted to be part of the new council. I politely declined. I already did my part, I said. Now it's your turn. It's been 6 months since Karen was charged, 5 since the HOA was dissolved, 3 since the last news van finally stopped parking across the street. Things have changed, quietly, but deeply. The house looks the same. Blue paint, white shutters, flag flying proud. Bear still barks at squirrels like they owe him money. But the energy is different now. Lighter, calmer, no more letters in the mailbox. No more drones. No more shadows loitering by the hedges. Just wind, sun, and the occasional smell of ribs from Donovan's smoker. Rico moved to the next county over, built himself a shop, and started restoring motorcycles full-time. Donovan stayed local. He does security consulting now, mostly for neighborhood groups that want to protect residents without pretending to be above the law. He said working my case reminded him what justice with boundaries looks like. As for me, I took a sabbatical. Nothing fancy, just stopped consulting for a few months. Focused on restoring the porch, rebuilt the steps with my own hands, painted them redwood. Every brushstroke felt like a reset, a reclamation. The ACLU case is still ongoing, but it's already triggered legislative drafts in 5 states. There's a new federal advisory on HOA powers being reviewed by the Subcommittee on Civil Rights. A bill's in the works to limit extrajudicial enforcement actions by HOAs. Karen's name appears twice in the briefing materials as an example of what not to do. I never thought I'd be part of changing something bigger than my own fence line. But it happened. Not because I asked for it, but because someone tried to take something that didn't belong to them, and I said no. Karen pled not guilty, of course, claimed she was misled by rogue contractors. The jury didn't buy it. She was convicted on 2 counts of criminal conspiracy and 1 count of unlawful surveillance. Sentencing's in December. I won't be there. I don't need to see it. Closure doesn't always come with a gavel. Sometimes it's just an afternoon on the porch, coffee in hand, bear at your feet, and the knowledge that no one's going to zip tie you over a mailbox color ever again. A neighbor walked by the other day. New guy, moved in after the shakeup. Young couple, seems decent. He waved and said, "Hey, I saw your interview. You're kind of a legend around here." I smiled. "Nah, just a homeowner." He laughed. "Still, thanks for doing what you did." I nodded. Let's hope no one ever has to do it again.